Hi, everyone. My name is Eitan Bremler, co-hosting this webinar today with Fernanda. She will introduce herself once we get to the demo. I'm one of the product managers managing storage security within Defender for Cloud. And I'm happy to be here today to show you what's new in storage security. So let's go ahead. So before we dive into what do we offer in terms of storage security, I want to show you a bit of the questions that come up from our customers. We call it let's discuss. When we reach a customer, we talk to them, we ask, what are your concerns? And here are some of the main issues that come up from our customers. Whether it's regulatory compliance, we always ask, what are you concerned about in terms of regulations, whether it's HIPAA or DORA or PCI, and how does that affect storage security or cloud security? What data do you have in your storage accounts, and how do you determine whether it's sensitive or not? We want to ensure you know where your sensitive data is located in order to protect it from external or internal threats. How do you validate your data is accessed from correct locations, that it's not publicly accessed, there's no anonymous access, no Tor access? This could be blobs, data lakes, Azure files. How do you validate your users and the correct users are using correct identities to access your storages, that malicious code is not uploaded into your storages? What is downloaded from your storages? Do you have SAS keys? Do you have entry IDs? These are different questions that we continuously ask our customers. And I hope that once we finish this presentation, you'll see how we address all of these questions. So when we look at cloud storages and the top risks around cloud storages, we separate these risks into, or challenges, into two types. One is operational challenges around compliance, and you can see that 78% of organizations face compliance challenges. Again, this could be DORA, this could be HIPAA, which have requirements for example, malware scanning or periodic malware scanning for storages. 70% of organizations are concerned about how do they discover hidden sensitive data. TCO is up because of all the security we need to place on our storages. And there's other operational challenges on top of these, but these are the main ones. On the other hand, we have the threat landscape. Malware uploads, data exfiltration, data corruption. Each one of these has both a security concern, but also a business concern. Each data exfiltration issue creates a breach, right? And a breach costs us money, whether it's ransom money. If I have data corruption, it takes me time and money to address and remediate this threat. So at the end of the day, whether we're looking at operational challenges, whether we're looking at the attacks and threats, it comes down to OPEX, CAPEX, reputation, time, and we hope that with our solution, and once we show it and you understand, we can help you address both the operational challenges and the threat challenges. So talking to our customers and building a solution, we outline, and this is what we're focusing on, two main use cases, which we think encompass the majority of the market, each use case with its own issues, its own characteristics, its own needs, and both are addressed fully with our storage security solution. So the top use case we're talking about is where you can look at it as kind of enterprise storages, right? Internal storages, Azure blobs, Azure files, that serve either humans, like internal employees, file shares, personal file shares, company file shares, or application data. Could be AI applications using data for learning, for baselining. Could be financial applications, could be HR applications, could be different medical applications, different types of applications storing data within our storages. The threats here are varied. whether it's data exfiltration, so someone stealing our data, internal or external. If I, for some reason, open up my storages for third parties to access or to share, access without identities, so hidden identities accessing over SAS keys. We'll talk about this later. Different threats to sensitive data, ransomware, encryption. So this is the threats we're looking at in this scenario. This could also be data poisoning. Think about someone hacking into a storage account, modifying data which is used by an application for learning, for baselining. I essentially impact the AI application. It now learns wrong information. Compliance. There's a lot of compliance around here. How do I ensure all my storages are compliant, that they're scanned, that they're not publicly accessed? So this is enterprise data. This is one use case. The second use case is external file access or data cleaning scenarios. So think about a scenario where you, the customer, you have some web portal allowing customers to upload files to you. Think about an HMO, a CPA, right? If I'm an HMO, I allow my customers to upload medical documentation into a portal. The files from this portal usually are ingested at the end of the day into some application. Now, if I'm a hacker, I can upload a malware essentially through this portal. So we need to protect our applications. So we do this by scanning the data once it is uploaded from the user. So the user uploads a file, we scan it, and only clean data and clean files are ingested by the applications. Kind of a clearinghouse scenario. So we can screen customer data, maintain the a pipeline hygiene that end-to-end from the user to the application, or from the web application to the application, everything is clean, filtering malicious files, or even with specific scenarios, also completely block and delete malicious files, up to you. These are the two main use cases that we see today in the market, which we address with our solution. So Defender for Storage, or storage security, is part of our Synapse solution. Okay, so Microsoft Synapse solution, very briefly, comprises of three components. On the left-hand side, the DevSecOps solution, enabling secure development. So ensuring code to cloud, that everything is clean, that everything is secure, nothing malicious in the code. From there, we go up to posture, right? Continuously reducing risk by continuously scanning all our resources for posture, for application lifecycle, for sensitive data. And at the end, the cloud workflow protection, the CWP, where we belong, where Defender for Storage is part, ensuring all our resources, our cloud resources, are protected in real time against external threats, internal threats, malware, etc. So when we look at cloud storage security, we look at it as two phases. On the one hand, start secure. On the other hand, stay secure. And I'll give you an analogy to kind of explain. Think about, we own, or we are the curators of a high-end museum, right? And we're building a new high-end museum with very expensive artifacts we're showing, and sculptures and pictures. So before we even bring everything in and we start putting up all the expos, we ensure security. We have guards and cameras and motion sensors and keypads, right? And we scan and we make sure all the windows are closed, and we bar windows where we need, and we lock doors, and we know where are the exits and all the different places a thief can come in and steal our data, or sorry, not the data, but the pictures and all the stuff in the museum, all the exhibits. That's start secure. But also we do stay secure. We continuously monitor the cameras, and we continuously have guards on patrol to make sure we're secure, and we do drills. What happens if someone comes in, and how do we call 911, right? So that's stay secure. The same thing works here. We start secure, and then we stay secure. So start secure in cloud storage security means finding and prioritizing our risks in storage before we even continue and do the actual protection. So with our solution, with a one click, and we'll show you later on, agentless one click, we scan all of our storage resources and we find the different attack paths, the different sensitive data, the different storage risk, and we list all of them to you. So you can start remediating before you start actual enabling other security. So we show you misconfigurations and sensitive data location and which storages are open to the internet and which have anonymous access. So you can ensure your posture is good before you start, because if you just start protecting and your posture is bad, you're just adding risk, right? We want to ensure the posture is in a very good score before we go into the stay secure. So, and we'll dive into the start secure and the different options later on. Once we close and we ensure our posture is good, we go to the stay secure. And here we have two modules, if you will, or two options in the stay secure. One is detecting and responding to risks, to threats, we do activity monitoring. We do through integration with Defender XDR, we can detect and investigate different threats, alerts, and incidents, right? Someone uploaded a malware and then downloaded the malware. So there's a potential lateral movement. All of that is covered under our detect and respond capabilities. And we'll talk about that later on. And you can see threat insights and who's downloading sensitive data and, an anomalous sensitive data download, right? Something which is new, which is high rate compared to previous downloads. And the second module is the malware protection. We scan malware at rest on upload. We'll talk about this to ensure not only access is secure, but you don't have any malware in your storages. And if we need, we can delete, we can quarantine malicious files. So let's talk about Start Secure. So Start Secure starts, if you will, with discovering and addressing and remediating risks. This includes two things. One, identifying posture risks, right? Once we enable our posture management, we automatically, and again, agentlessly, scan, discover all of your resources, whether you know them or you are not aware of them, what we call shadow data. We identify misconfigurations and risk on each one of these storages, whether it's over permissive access, public access, anonymous access, connections to other locations, exposed data. We identify this. And then we give you the tools and the steps for remediation. This includes very detailed visibility into where you have sensitive data, on a resource level, for example, and whether it's exposed or not. We give you all your posture issues, the issues and the recommendations through a prioritization mechanism, which tells you you need to fix this first, this second, this is higher priority recommendation and risk, and this is a lower one. You can review this, you can fix this, and you can see your score improving over time and the recommendations lowered in severity once you start addressing. So it's all about identifying our risk to our storages, what's open, what's not, where there is sensitive data, where is it, and addressing and remediating our issue. So for example, part of the remediation or the discovery is showing you the attack paths. As you can see here, we actually show you what is connected to what. So we have a storage account, Woodgrove 8888 on the end, which is connected to by other locations. There's a VM, which is which is in a high severity vulnerability. So if I access that VM, I can laterally move as an entry point into my storage account, which has sensitive data. So it's not the storage account necessarily connected to the internet, but somewhere along the way, there's an open entry point that can lead to our sensitive data being stolen. So we show you very comprehensive visibility. You know exactly what is the attack path, what is the risk. You can assess, you can define, okay, this is, I agree, this is high risk or not, and remediate either automatically or manually. We give you the recommendations also of how to remediate. Close the port, right? Move sensitive data, disconnect, change your users, move to enter IDs, etc. So we talked about, right? Start secure. Let's talk about stay secure. So stay secure starts by enabling security. So we enabled our posture model that gave us the start secure. Now to stay secure, we enable storage security. Microsoft Defender for storage, one click enables you the entire package, whether it's the threat protection, the activity monitoring, sensitive data discovery as part of the Defender for Storage package, and malware scanning. And we'll see this once Fernanda does the demo. We'll see all the different features, configurations, and how they are done. You can do on upload in terms of malware scanning. By default, you get an upload. You can choose to do on-demand malware scanning. So basically scanning for files at rest, right? So how are my all of my resource assets, all my storage assets, are they clean from malware or not? We'll see this in the demo. And response, right? We'll see alerts in the demo. You see alerts, you see their severity, and you can remediate. Everything enabled is in one click, and then you can choose whether you want to do manual scanning in addition, like I said, with on demand, and you can see all your alerts to start addressing, right? And you can see the recommendations, as you can see here, right? You have storage account should prevent shared key access. This is a medium severity. We recommend you address this, right? So everything here in a single view, as we'll see in the demo, to help you stay secure. Now, when we talk about staying secure, right? One thing important to talk about is identities, right? And identities are divided between how we connect, if you will, to our storages. We have the control plane, which is what we usually think about in terms of identities. People accessing, enter IDs or SAS keys, and can do control plane actions. Read, write, create, right? Create a storage, for example, delete a storage. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Underneath, we have the data plane. This is actually accessing our storage, our containers, or our blob or our files, and reading them, deleting them, etc. All of this can be done not necessarily with enter IDs, but with access keys and tokens. And these identities, and you can see here it's about 67% of identities, we call them entities without identities. They enter through the data plane. Now, if we don't look at the data plane, we're only looking at a third of our use cases. We need to look at the entire package, 100% control plane and data plane. And this is exactly what we do with our activity monitoring threat intelligence solution. We look control plane, we look data plane, and we tell you what's going on, who's accessing on which, who is taking files, doing exfiltration, and we can identify different signs of early breach, whether it's leaking and abusing access tokens, stealing credentials, doing reconnaissance, malicious insiders coming in and copying files, downloading files, lateral movement, compromised third-party keys. Everything is identified, correlated using our agents with Defender for Storage, and presented to you in XDR, in the alerts, and you can really understand what is going on. Essentially, when we correlate, we give you a very wide range of detections, and we divided them into 4 detection families: malicious content, malware uploaded, malware downloaded, or malware distribution; suspicious access patterns, someone accessing over a Tor IP; suspicious IP addresses, suspicious applications; unusual access in terms of throughput, in terms of location or geo access; sensitive data exposure, okay, look, Mr. Customer, or this sensitive data is in a storage account which is exposed to the internet. Unusual anonymous access, suspicious behavior, unusual data extraction, unusual data exploration. Now we can do this because we look at the entire landscape of access. Like I said, control and data plane, correlating everything together in one view. And you can even correlate this with other solutions through the XDR. So imagine you saw a malware uploaded, a file uploaded, then downloaded. You can even check whether you see this on other Defender for Cloud solutions, like an MDE, for example, because it's the same SHA, right? So we can, combining all the solutions together, you can get an end-to-end visibility of what's going on. So here you can see an example of a security alert that we present to user. This is a suspicious external access to storage with an overly permissive SaaS token, right? We recognize all of that. Not only that it's a external access, but it's also using a suspicious access token. And then suspicious external operations. You can see here the alert description, the AD user, in this case, no AD user because it's a SaaS key, the agent, the authentication type, which is SaaS, potential causes, and and the steps that were done, right? What is the token hash? All of this information is presented for you in the alert, including the meter attack tactics, what type of attack is this, and we will offer you the recommendation how to fix this. So again, you can see here a security alert. This is just zooming in. Sensitivity label. This is actually accessing a storage with sensitive information. So you can see that this user might access a sensitive storage container, right, with confidential files that contain credit card numbers and personal ID numbers. So we know all of this information and we present it to you, so you know exactly not only who's accessing your storages, but what resides in them in terms of sensitivity that might be at risk. So we talked about activity monitoring. The second part is malware protection. So we not only track all the activity, we also ensure malware protection. We know to scan today malware on upload and malware at rest, what we call on-demand malware scanning. So any file uploaded into a container will be scanned automatically. You can choose to filter out files you do not want to scan if you know you have file types which are good and cannot be infected. You can filter them out to reduce costs and to simplify operations. But everything uploaded up to 50 gigabyte file sizes is scanned. You can cap the amount of files in terms of capacity that you can scan, but you can also scan on demand. So if you need to do periodic scans every week, every month, prior to an audit or on a regular basis, because we update our signature files and you want to stay up to date, you can do periodic on-demand scan. This is agentless. You don't need to install anything on your storage account, and it runs at scale on your entire subscription, on the entire storage account. We support all types of malware, whether it's metamorphic or polymorphic. You can choose to enable or disable per resource. So if you have a resource that you're confident doesn't need malware scanning, you can disable, though of course we recommend enabling on everything. And all the malware, any alerts are pushed to different destinations, whether it's log monitoring, event grid, XDR, alert view, for you to take it to the next level of investigation. Okay, you saw an alert. Now that will be correlated into an incident. So as I gave an example before, someone uploaded the malware and someone downloaded the malware. These are two alerts which will be correlated into a incident of lateral movement. So once you have the results, you can choose what to do with them. You can choose to automatically respond, right? Automatically remediate, delete, right? With our integrations, with Event Grid or Log Analytics, or just a security alert, you can integrate your services, your applications, your APIs to respond to a alert, and then either delete the file or quarantine the file. So this summarizes my presentation, and we'll answer questions at the end, and I'll hand it over to Fernanda to take us through the demo.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you can see my screen now. So to start, we want to take you on the enablement process. So I've seen a lot of questions in the chat about like, how do you enable this? You can enable it at the resource level or at the subscription level. And in some cases, right, like customers have different use case scenarios. Maybe some of their storage accounts that live in their environment don't really receive any files from like external users, or they don't really have like any traffic going on. So then they decide to do a different approach on their storage security, right? So this is how the enablement works at the resource level or at the subscription level. Now, there's different options for you to enable this. One of them that you can find right here in our documentation is via an Azure built-in policy that we have. So I'm going to go right now into the Defender for Cloud, into the Azure portal. And from here, you can see that there's this policy definition about configuring Microsoft Defender for Storage to be enabled. If you click on here, it is going to show you what are the things that you can configure to enable or not. One of the values is, for example, do you want to have malware scanning enabled? Like, is it a use case scenario for your storage account to have this? Is it like publicly exposed or something? Another thing that you can also configure right here in the policy is the capping. So if you want to enable all of your users to upload, I don't know, like 1 gigabyte a month, for example, or 500 megs or any value, you can define it right here. You can also define here if you want to have sensitive data discovery. And from here, like you can see, it's all of these parameters, and then you can assign it like via your subscription or your management group. Like you can do like any configuration here. Now, the other options to enable this is via infrastructure as code. So we have here a Terraform template. Like I said, you can enable it on a subscription, or you can enable it on a storage account. We also have these available via REST APIs. Again, same situation, subscription or storage account level. PowerShell also. And at the same time, we have the very easy user interface enablement. So when we go into the Defender for Cloud and we go into our environment settings, we can select, for example, this subscription. And from here, once it loads, we're going to have the enablement option for Defender for Storage. If I click on, it is going to give me the configuration settings. So I can have, for example, malware scanning enabled. And at the subscription level, I can define how many gigs in each one of the storage account I have can be scanned for malware. So I can apply this at the subscription level. I can also enable the sensitive data discovery. And yeah, so this is how you can do it at the subscription level. Now you can also, like I said, you can enable it at the storage account level, so using the user interface. So right here, I am in a specific storage account. And when I go under the security and networking, and I click on Microsoft Defender for Cloud, I can go into the settings and I can enable or disable the plan. When I enable the plan, I have the configurations, right? As the sensitive data threat detection, I can enable it, disable it. I can enable or disable on-upload malware scanning. And from here, I can also define how many gigabytes can be scanned per month in this specific storage account. So then maybe I can also control costs here. This webinar is titled What's New, right? And so one of the cool things that we launched is the filter on upload scans that you can configure right here. And I can explain it in a bit. But you can also configure in the specific storage account to send your scan results to an event grid topic or to a log analytics workspace. Now, what I'm gonna jump also into another of the features that is kind of like new but not so new, and that is the data and AI security dashboard. So in here, you can see that I have access to like my storage, databases, and all of that. But for the scope of this session, we're going to talk about storage. From here, I can go and see into the sensitive data discovery across all of my storage accounts. I can see how many credit card numbers were found, how many social security numbers, employee IDs, and other things were found. You don't have to have Purview to have access to this. But if you do have Purview, then you can benefit on your custom labels, right? So you can get like a bigger list here. You can also have this overview of all of the security alerts that are happening on your storage accounts. For example, here I have over 178 alerts. Now, because in this environment, I also have Defender CSPM enabled and Defender for storage, I can also get information on any queries in the Security Explorer. So I can see that I have 2 publicly available storage accounts that contain sensitive data. And if I click here on View, it is going to take me into the Cloud Security Explorer, which is a feature from Defender CSPM. It is going to auto-populate this query very easily. And once I hit the search button, it is going to show me the 2 storages that have that. Since here I have like an S3 bucket, I can see that it contains some sensitive data. I also have a blob storage container within Azure that also has that information. And even when I click on View Details, it is going to give me more information about it. So what is the storage account? What's the resource group? Some of the insights, for example, when was this last scan, right? So this was on the 16th. I can see all of the sensitive information types that are living in that specific storage container. And I can even have like any other description of, oh, does it allow public access, for example? So this is very good information to have here. Then I can also see, for example, what are my internet exposed data resources? Again, this is also going to take me into this Cloud Security Explorer, where it's going to auto-populate it and give me, again, the same information about all of my storage accounts. Now, I'm going to jump into another thing that we have, and that is attack path analysis, right? This is with the partnership of Defender CSPM. And here is where you can map resources together, right, in your entire environment and kind of like understand what could be an attack path that could happen if you, for example, don't remediate a vulnerable server, or in this case, a vulnerable container. So from here, I can see that there's this internet exposed container that has high severity vulnerabilities, and that it has a managed identity that connects into, it was not this one, sorry, that it has a managed identity that connects into a storage account, right? I'm gonna see the description, I'm gonna see the entire attack story. I can see how all of this is connected, and I could even have even more information. So let's say that this specific storage account had sensitive information. I will be able to see it here. And also this can help me predict what could happen, right? If I don't remediate those vulnerabilities in this container, because what if like a user then starts implementing this storage account and starts uploading very sensitive information files, then this could be very critical, right? Within that, now I'm gonna go back into malware scanning. And so we were here, right? And we were saying how in a storage account, now we can do filters for on-upload scans. And this was a very highly requested feedback from a lot of our customers, right? They had some use cases where they didn't want to scan everything that was uploaded into the storage account. They had like very specific use cases. Or maybe they only had a publicly available container within that storage account that they wanted to protect. So within here, you can, for example, include the blob path for your container, so that you can exclude like an entire container within your storage account. You can also exclude a specific suffix, for example, PNG, a PDF, anything like that. And for this use case, I'm going to put here a PDF. You can also exclude at the same time that any PDF that is large than 100 bytes or something like that, you can apply it here. And I already have my configuration to send all of the scan results, either it is found malicious or not malicious, to a log analytics workspace that I have in my environment. So I'm going to click here on Save. And this is going to apply all of the settings within my storage account. Takes a little bit to load, but now it's done. So now I'm here. Let me just refresh the screen. Now I'm here in my storage account. And when you go into containers, that's the way that you can upload files, right? So I have a specific container here that is called upload. And from here, I can see some of the other files that I have already uploaded in the past. So I can see, for example, a random TXT file that was uploaded where the malicious scan result was no threats found. I can also see when that was scanned. I also can see, for example, that I tried to trigger the malware scanning by uploading an ECAR that was compressed 3 times, because that's one of the techniques that bad actors use. And here I can see that the file was found as malicious. Now, if I just want to upload like a random file, just like for showing you how fast this is, I'm just going to upload this zip file. When I upload it, successfully uploads it, refresh it, and then if I go into that specific file, instantly I'm going to get that there was no threats found, right, in this one, because it was like a benign file. Now, we saw in the configuration, right, that there's the option for you to send all of these scan results into a log analytics workspace or to an event grid. I have here my log analytics workspace. And then if I just apply this query, storage malware scanning results, and sort them by the time generated, I can just run it and I can get like one of the latest scans. Since log analytics workspace is not very fast, I'm not going to see the latest one that I just uploaded, but I can see the last ones that I did during this morning. Some of the information that I can find is the time that this was generated, the operation was a scan, the storage account name, where is it located, what was the scan result, right? Here is that no threats were found, and I can have visibility into the entire resource ID, for example. So this is like a cool way to kind of like also get all of the information from your storage accounts. Now, I also wanted to show that we have all of the security alerts also stated in our documentation. There were some questions in the chat about what type of security alerts would Defender for Storage bring regarding sensitive information. So for example, here, if I just put sensitive, for example, I can get that, for example, the access level of a potential sensitive storage container was changed to allow unauthenticated public access. Some publicly accessible containers were also discovered, and there's sensitive data that is in there. So here I can have like all of these threat detections that are going on in my storage accounts that actually have sensitive data. And then when I bring it together with the context of Defender CSPM, then I can keep track of, like, for example, attack paths, right? Like, is there any other resource that has a managed identity that can authenticate and maybe extract that information, or even upload even more all of these malicious files, so that then a random user then propagates that file and then everything gets bad, right? So I can have the visibility in all of this. Something that I forgot to mention is that within our Defender for Storage, there's also the option for you to do on-demand malware scanning. And this is something that some security benchmarks as ISO 27700, CIS, and NIST require you to do if you're following those, right? They also require you to do them like in a recurrent manner, right? So for example, here I can just like manually trigger this scan, and this is going to scan my entire storage account with the latest signatures that we use within our engine. And so I'm gonna have here like all of the results, right? Like when it was last scanned, how many blobs were scanned, how many jigs were scanned, if there were any that were skipped, and if there were any threats found. Now, if I am a customer and I'm following that security benchmark, maybe I'm following CIS, I need to automate this to make it recurrent, right? And so we recently created a logic app automation that helps you do this. You can find it, and it's super easy to deploy. You can find it in our Defender for Cloud GitHub repository. I'm going to paste this link in a bit, but you can just deploy it to Azure or deploy it to your Azure Gov cloud. And very simple steps where you don't really need to configure a lot of things. And the way that it is going to look is that it is going to show you, for example, here I have the specific automation. If I expand here, I can see, for example, that I'm automating the on-demand malware scanning, right? So like this specific button, instead of having a user coming in here and going into each one of the storage accounts and triggering this recurrent scan, I can just automate it using this logic app, where we're gonna give you the scan ID, scan status, how many were skipped, like all of the information that you're able to see here in this view is gonna be available here. This is configurable, so you can automate it to run every once a week, every, like, depending on any value that you're trying to follow. The result that you're going to receive in your email is going to look like this. For example, I had 2 storage accounts in my environment, and I was able to understand how many blobs were scanned, how many malicious blobs were found, how many were skipped, what was the estimated cost that scan happened to occur on, and all of this information, right? Which is very cool if you just want to have like a simple way to just automate this without investing any time in creating an automation like that. Now we have a lot more automations in our environment. You can also check out our module 19 on Defender for Storage, where you can see also some automations about creating, for example, a function app that is based on event grids that is going to quarantine your malicious files into a different container, or you can also deploy even simpler logic app automations to, for example, delete a malicious file. So all of this information is right here. It has like the step-by-step for you to follow. And with that, Eitan, is there anything else that we want to say before we jump into the Q&A?
No, thank you, Fernanda, for the demo. I think it was covered. Like Fernanda said, everything is available in the documentation. Of course, you'll have this webinar recorded later on. I think this summarizes our part. And Emily, I think we can go over to the questions if we want.
Great, that sounds good. Thank you, guys. Perfect. So we have one question here that says, does the new model of Defender for storage have any benefits over the classic model outside of blobs? Any added benefits for files, queues, and tables?
Yeah, so for example, at least for files, right? The threat detections that we do in the new pricing, in the new plan, we have more alerts that tackle your blobs and your Azure files. So those are going to be enhanced. And yeah, so you would benefit from all of those new threat detections that we are putting into those file types.
Awesome. And then the next question says, does a single toggle enable or capture everything, including the capture of entities, attack path, etc.? And it includes threat, intelligence, etc.
Yeah, so basically, once you enable Defender CSPM on even subscription level, for example, you will get all the posture management capabilities. Part of it, specifically sensitive data discovery, is also part of the Defender for Storage plan. But basically, in one click for the CSPM, you get all the posture, and in one click, once you enable Defender for Storage, you get activity monitoring and all the malware scanning with upload enabled by default. So it won't scan what you already have at rest once you enable. For that, like Fernanda said, we had the on-demand. But once you enable, from that point, everything uploaded will be automatically scanned.
Perfect. And then the next question says, is this for things like Azure storage blobs and not for OneDrive?
Correct. This is for Azure blobs.
Okay. Perfect. And then let's see here. The next question says, is data scanned for malware on the initial upload when you enabled only for Defender for Storage protection?
So like I said, once you enable Defender for Storage, on upload is enabled by default. So from the point of enablement, either on the subscription level and then all the resources are enabled, or on the resource level, from that point on, any file uploaded will automatically be scanned unless you filter out specific file types, prefixes or suffixes. Data that you already had in your storage accounts will not be scanned, right? So only uploaded data. If you want to scan backwards, for that we have the on-demand.
Awesome. Perfect. That sounds good. And then let's see here. Our next question. Let's go back to this one that looks like it got a good response. What do you gain in using the malware scanning versus having Defender for Endpoint scanning the Azure files? The malware scanning appears to be much more expensive than the legacy Defender for Storage model.
So legacy Defender for Storage does not have malware. Okay, this is malware scanning is only part of the per storage plan. And the difference, or there's no real difference between MD or the endpoint and Defender for Storage, right? MD scans your endpoint, and Defender for Storage scans your blobs. So essentially, if you're using blobs and uploading blobs from an endpoint, they will be scanned in the endpoint, and then they will be scanned also at rest. The importance of scanning them at the blob storage is that they now reside there, not necessarily modified by the user. And our signatures continuously change. So you always want to check for the latest signature. But in addition to the malware, you also have all the activity monitoring. So if anyone accesses, like we discussed, the blob storage and takes that file, then that would be logged potentially as an anomalous action if it comes from a unknown IP or geo, or at a high rate, someone is downloading many files in a short period of time. All of that is part of the activity monitoring for the Center for Storage.
Perfect. That sounds great. And it looks like that was our last question here. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to Eitan and Fernanda for being our guests today and for sharing all of this great information with our community. Also, thank you so much to the Q&A team who helped us with answering the questions and providing the resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. For those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/mdc-community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.